proteins. Sounds like.
I don't know. Are we wearing masks through the meeting? Just asking our friend.
What? They're not
Should
real.
do.
If we don't, we're 6 foot, we should be okay.
I want to move closer to Shannon just so that
Shannon, I think you and I need to.
I know you're clean.
I have I'm the only one that you know is clean.
You two are the lucky ones over there,
and that's
right?
nothing.
Traveling.
I've
I know,
not been
Cheryl.
anywhere since then. I'm like,
No sneezing.
Are we good, Lisa? Are we good, Steve?
I think we're good to go.
Okay, quick question, for public participation, is that board at sylvaniaschools.org?
That's correct. We need a phone number, so their name, their address, and phone number. And we will not say their phone number up.
All right, welcome. I'd like to call this Tuesday, July 28th, 2020, Sylvania Board of Education meeting to order. If you'll call the roll, please.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Here.
Julie Hoffman.
Here.
Shannon Sapersky.
Here.
Bruce Lanslutsky.
Here.
Greg Feller.
Here.
We can stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to note a couple things administratively that we will have an opportunity for public participation. Anybody who'd like to participate, please email us at board@sylvaniaschools.org. Include your name as well as your phone number, because we will need to call you in order for that public participation to occur. And district@sylvaniaschools.org. Give us your name and your phone number. We will contact you because it's our intent to have public participation in the way that we can in this virtual space, and that's also why we're not wearing our masks even though we have them, because we're socially distant and we want everyone to be able to hear us. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Conley.
Yeah, I would just like to take a moment of silence here in memory of the Stranahan student that we lost this weekend.
Thank you for that. He's in all of our hearts and prayers, their family. So we shall begin this evening with some very substantive information delivered to us from our incoming superintendent. August 1st is just Saturday. So Dr. Motley, if you will lead us through the yellow plan for 2021 restart, it will be appreciated.
Absolutely, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to provide a presentation tonight that provides a general overview of what our restart reopening plan will look like for the upcoming school year. We have been working diligently on a variety of plans that really it's one plan that incorporates a number of different models along the way based on whatever situation we may face. But tonight, our goal is to share with our school board and make the recommendation that we move forward with adopting formally the hybrid learning plan, otherwise known as the yellow plan. So first and foremost, you'll see on the next slide that the hybrid learning plan entails a rotation schedule for students. It's a schedule or rotation for students. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, just touch it.
Just do that.
Okay. I can touch it.
I can touch it.
Okay. I can touch it.
We have white
All right,
here too.
I'll continue with the content. There is a rotation schedule, and the rotation will consist of an AA cohort. The students in the A cohort will attend school on Monday and Tuesday. The B cohort will attend school on Wednesday and Thursday. You'll see the letter C there that represents the 5th day of classes. That will mean that is a no new instruction day.
Okay, I have a question. Do you
Sure.
want us to hold our questions to the end in case you're going to answer them? or-
Sure, whatever you feel comfortable with.
And I'd also, and I apologize to interrupt, but we also have Mr. Greenberg with us this evening, president of our Sylvania Education Association, because while we're talking about framework, my understanding is between you, Dr. Motley, and you, Mr. Greenberg, that we can address any questions we have as it relates to perhaps a little more substance.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's the other thing I wanted to check because I don't know, is this close enough? Okay.
Maybe
good.
ask Bruce one, can he hear?
Bruce Line, can you hear?
Yes, but not as clearly as
You want me to take him over here?
but I can hear.
He says he can hear.
He can?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll continue. The fifth day is designed around new instruction, which in some regards is a day that can be used for intervention, enrichment, reaching out to teachers for additional support, social, emotional learning supports, a variety of things and options. And that's to be more determined based on the student's academic level, grade level, and what would be most appropriate for those students. For example, elementary may look very different than what it would look like for a high school student.
Okay, I do have a question.
Sure.
Did anybody consider doing the Wednesday as like the no day
Yes.
so that it could be deep clean between the A group coming in and the B group coming in?
Yes, we actually did. We had quite an in-depth discussion about looking at the Wednesday day as a float day of in between. And actually, Dr. Slutsky was part of that conversation as well and offered his expertise. My understanding from Mr. Lymes and our cleaning services, that actually we do a deep clean every night. And so that's what's most important. We don't want people to feel that all of a sudden we're doing something different. In Sylvania, we have always been very, very ahead of the curve with making sure that we have a deep clean every night, including ionizers that they spray in the classrooms.
That's better.
That's
I mean,
really,
that's better.
yeah. Also, there was a concern by the teachers. They expressed a concern because we actually met with administrators, classroom teachers. We had input also from the operations side of things. And what we found is from classroom teachers, they had a concern that if it fell in the middle of the week, that second group of students actually wouldn't get the benefit of the support because they wouldn't circle back around to the following Wednesday. So this way they felt that each week a teacher would be able to have contact with both cohorts of students because it would have been new instruction on Thursday, Friday, then the weekend, and then they wouldn't have an opportunity until the next Wednesday to get intervention support, enrichment, and it would be too much of a break within the instructional delivery. So that was the feedback from all folks in regards to why we didn't go to Wednesday.
Okay, I'm gonna have a camera question, but are we gonna cover that?
Yeah, we will cover some snippets in a discussion, but it won't be
Okay,
on
all
here
right, that's
as
what
of
you
yet.
want to know.
Okay,
Wait.
perfect, all right. We did want to announce and ask the board to approve, we will have bus stop locations. They are on the agenda tonight for approval. Please note those are subject to change as parents move in and move out or we make adjustments, but that is the first step in order for us to keep the plan moving forward. We will have our class cohort groupings determined by no later than Friday, and we're excited to let everyone out there who's watching and listening that we want to get this in your hands as soon as possible, and if we can make that happen prior to Friday, we will certainly do so. I do want to remind our community that we have over 7,700 students, closer to 7,800 students that we've had to break up into cohorts. We wanted to make sure we did our due diligence and really made sure that we had a balance in our classrooms for instructional purposes. So it's much easier to accomplish at the elementary level, but when you're talking about some pretty big high schools in Sylvania in regards to also making sure those high school students are getting the credits they need for high school graduation, we wanted to make sure we paid attention to the details. So we're excited that our families will have that information by Friday. In addition, tonight we will be asking the board to approve a new school calendar for the upcoming school year. As we have evolved into a different plan from what we originally started, which was green, we all thought and had a very hefty goal of returning to school every day, all day. We really did not have a need to adjust the calendar. But with our new direction, which includes supports for technology and a different instructional model with a hybrid learning plan, we are asking the board to delay the first full day of school by 1 week, which would be Monday, August 31st. Now, I do want our folks and our board to recognize that we still will have student orientations that are scheduled during that time period. Our goal is to have that information out to parents this Friday as well. But that is a goal. We certainly think we can do that and have it all in one communication. But I do want our folks and for the board to be able to share with our community that we will have student orientation for our kids this year. When we look at the new start date, some folks may be wondering why, and why are we delaying? Our kiddos have been out of school for some time now. And truly it's because we want to make sure that our new hybrid plan and all the things that we're doing is that we get it right. We also think this is a benefit for our parents. They'll have one extra week to plan for childcare and work schedules. But most importantly, we also want to make sure that we prepare our schools and our staff for when our students return. So for example, we will be providing professional development for some of our teachers. We will also be providing training on safety protocols for our staff so that they can also in turn train our students on safety protocols for while they're in the building. In addition, we are going to look at upgrading some technology, hence the cameras for the classroom, and we are exploring some options with SEA about what those cameras will actually look like for instruction and how we can use them. And I think Mr. Greenberg is here also to talk a little bit about that tonight as well. But we feel that, especially with the need implementing Schoolology, that it is a new platform for all of our teachers in the district. We want to make sure we have an opportunity not only to give them the information they need to be effective and provide real-time instruction for our students, but also for our students to learn it, and also for our parents to understand how it works. So all of those components, so we are giving ourselves a gift of one extra week before we have our first official day of school. Our goal with the hybrid learning plan as we respond to our families and our community is really to provide an ongoing continuous instruction model. We did receive a lot of feedback about what this can look like. And again, I don't want to preempt the board or preempt any agreements that we may have with SEA, but we are exploring real-time options for learning in regards to how we can use cameras in the classroom to provide instruction for our students. We want to make sure that instruction is developmentally appropriate. We know that how a kindergartner may work online will look totally different than an 8th grader or a 9th grader, and we will accommodate those needs. We are also setting different expectations, and this is something what our community has cried out for. And I really want to spend some time speaking to this point because in the spring, as we all know, we had to turn on a dime. And we were given very little time to prepare for instruction for our families and our students. Under the yellow plan, we will have different learning expectations. We will have different learning expectations for our teachers and their delivery of instruction, different expectations, higher expectations for students for their accountability as they receive instruction from our teachers, be it direct or online, and also expectations for academic performance and grading and assessment. I think our parents will find that it will take on more of a traditional approach than what we saw in the spring under the emergency shutdown. We have teachers that are going to be working to this end and working along with our partners at SEA to make sure that we have something in place that's workable for our families, but also making sure that we send a message that education continues to roll forward. The wheels of education have to continue to move, and we have to raise those expectations for our students and our families. And on a final note, that's our overview. So I'm open to questions from our board before we move forward with the formal recommendation.
Okay, so are we looking at putting cameras in the classrooms so that, you know, that A group is there Monday and Tuesday, and then when they're at home on Wednesday and Thursday, they can log in and get like real-time instruction?
Yes.
Okay, so is that part of the plan that we're approving?
Yes, and I would say tonight, some of those details, we will not approve that language per se, because we do have some things and some considerations that we do have to work through with SEA before we can formalize it. But that is the expectation of how can we make that happen with cameras in the classroom. If my child comes to school on Monday and Tuesday, then on Thursday and Friday, they sign in and they watch a teacher or engaged in the classroom environment. So we are working to that end. And I
It's really,
yeah, and if Dan, if you want to add some.
well, look, you could add, let me just ask my follow-up question.
Sure.
What grades are we looking at? I mean, because I understand like that would be difficult to do for kindergartners maybe.
Yes.
But I certainly think like at least 6 to 12,
Yes.
or, you know, that
Yes.
they spend a lot of their time with their face looking at the screen anyway, so what, I mean, those details.
We've been working, thank you very much for giving the opportunity to be here. Yeah,
Thanks
we've
for
been-
being here.
Sure. We've been talking about things at 6 through 12th grade as being the more appropriate than moving it down to the elementary grades. You know, there's a lot of that at the elementary level becomes parent dependent. In a lot of households, and so that could be a significant barrier for our students to be able to get access if there has to be a parent or some adult there to guide them through that. So we have been looking at 6 through 12, and as Dr. Motley said, we have not come to gotten everything specified and with those plans. But the idea that we've been talking about today, even as we had a meeting, was maybe it looks like you have the teacher in the front of the classroom and that teacher feels very comfortable doing live streaming and working with the students. Maybe it's a matter of a shared screen where they're looking at like the PowerPoint presentation and the teacher is voicing over what that is, so they're also receiving it. A lot of teachers have voiced they want to be able to deliver the best instruction possible to their students, and as we started talking about the narrowest of looks, which is live streaming, to some teachers they said, listen, we could do something with Screencastify, for example, where we're going to make we would like to be able to make a specific lesson for our students who are at home and make that more tailored to the instruction and give it to them in a better way than we feel we could with live streaming. So the move is to have daily contact with those students. The move is to have to keep the learning continuing even if students are at home. It may be that synchronous learning model. It may be a matter of posting the lessons to the students through Schoology, but either way, that was what we were looking at.
So when you say posting lessons, you mean like a video and the kid just logs on anytime?
That was one of the things that was talked about from a standpoint of maybe I'm in my first period class, for example, and I do, let's say I was in front of my class videotaping my lesson, and then maybe I would give the students an option to live stream, but maybe I would also post that to Schoology. And those students who may not be able to access it because of whatever their commitments they have, they can access that throughout the day. That would be one way it would go, and it would take away from the barriers for some of our students about if there is some kind of time issue, students would still be held responsible for the material that is covered. But it may be that they view it at a different time of day, and it is there for them to see.
Well, because yeah, I mean, I guess my concern would be, you know, the original plan of the Monday, Tuesday, and then we're going to send like worksheets home. Like kids are getting less than half of the content.
Sure.
But my concern with what you're saying, and I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, but my concern would be, so we're saying, okay, hey, you can log on anytime, and maybe you're not the most responsible person. I'm not the most responsible person. She's super responsible.
Yes,
So
yes.
she logs on, but I don't. And then, I mean, where I would think like the synchronous learning, if I have to log on, my class is at 9 o'clock, you know, it should be easy to take attendance on that and to say, hey, you weren't there, like you should still be responsible, but you're in class. I mean, that's what my
Sure.
kids did. They both came home in March, one from, you know, in her undergrad and one in graduate school, and they followed their exact same schedule. Like if they had a class at 9
Sounds
o'clock,
great.
they were logged on, and that class was taught to them for both of them.
Sounds great. My thought would be, and speaking as an individual teacher, I'm thinking about accountability measures too, and the accountability measures that I'm thinking about are, you need that content as a student. If you log on at 4 in the afternoon or you log on at 9 in the morning, you need that content, and there will be academic accountability, and that's really what matters to me. As a classroom teacher, I think it's very difficult to manage two classrooms at the same time, which is a live stream classroom and the in-person classroom. I wouldn't be looking to have a ton of connection live stream because I have a whole other group of students in front of me in the classroom. I want to make sure to be able to address all student questions and things, and maybe those students would put things in the chat box and I would get to them afterwards or something like that. But for me, the accountability measure is if you don't log on and watch that class video, whether it's at 9 o'clock or 4 o'clock, you're going to have a logical consequence as your academic grades will suffer if you don't do it. And that's, I think, what's important. We've talked as teachers a lot about the accountability measures need to be there for teachers and for students. And I will tell you directly from a teacher today, it was very hard for teachers to do all the things that we were doing in the spring, but there was not a lot of accountability measures in place for students. And again, we were in some very extenuating circumstances. We've had some time to think about it. We want there to be that balance of accountability both on the student and the teacher's side, and that's what teachers are looking to do. They're saying we are more than happy to do what needs to be done to make sure lessons are delivered on a daily basis to students if there is that equitable accountability.
And I
Okay,
will
so-
say this though, to further that, because that was some of the discussion that came up on earlier, maybe yesterday. There's a concern, so let's say you have a household of 4 kids. They can't maybe necessarily all be on at the same time, if they're 6 to 12. So there was a concern about if you're requiring them to be on when the lesson's delivered, and if the teacher's in a place where they're not concerned that I'm seeing Julie in this space versus here in front of me, that they're okay with as long as we, the district, are mandating accountability from the student, that it doesn't have to be at
When
the
you
time.
say not, I'll be able to get on, I mean, we're providing devices, right, like Chromebooks or some avenue
We're
for
talking
students.
internet
So,
access,
that's
those
what I'm
kind of
talking-
things.
Okay, so then I have another question.
Sure.
So if we're doing 6 to 12 there, and so what are we doing for K-5 so that they're not just getting, 2 days of instruction a week? Like, how are we addressing that lack of content?
As a follow-up to that,
Okay.
I really feel like we should push this down to at least 4th grade.
Yeah, I would think like third.
I've researched a couple different districts that are doing this, live streaming, like all their classrooms, all their grades. To your point, kids are already on the screens a lot anyway. My personal feeling is I really, really would like to see this pushed down to at least 4th grade. I think 4th graders and up are capable of doing it.
Even
I have a
third
4th grader, my kid's totally capable of doing it. So that's my.
I mean, my concern would be, I think that's what we're saying, is like, if they're only getting 2 days of content, and this goes on for a semester, I mean, let's all hope it's 10 weeks, but if it's a semester or it's this year, how far behind are these K through 5 if they're only getting 2 days of instruction and then packets? I mean, we're not expecting the first grader to learn this stuff on their own, right, with a packet. That's just, I'm assuming the packets are like reinforcing skills you learned in your 2 days.
I think those things.
Yeah, if I could chime in, I think that's where we will be working with our elementary teachers, because that is not the expectation that we provide 2 days out of 5 for our students to learn. I think where we need some input from our teachers, because elementary is a different span. And quite frankly, K-3, you're still, and what's the saying, you're still learning to read. Then after 3rd grade, you're reading to learn. And not everybody starts to learn how to read at the same pace, and making those accommodations. And it really requires a lot of differentiation and instruction for the number of students that are in a classroom versus high school content where here's the content, I can have you read it the night before and we can have discussion. But if you're a kiddo who's struggling with reading,
Right, how
So,
difficult is it
right.
to teach somebody to read 2
Exactly.
days a week?
exactly. So we do
That's
have a
it.
plan,
Yeah.
we're working
We'll see
with
when it's
teachers.
possible.
Oh,
And just if I can follow up with that as well, just working in those subcommittees with elementary teachers, it's, we need to take that perception out. That's not the direction they want to go. It's not just teaching, I'm not just teaching my A group Monday and Tuesday and then you're on your own doing these worksheets Wednesday
Oh,
through
yeah,
Friday.
I mean, I don't expect
And
that
I
would
just
be
want to make
their
that,
thinking.
I understand that, and I understand how that can be the perception, but there will be, intervention, enrichment activities that follow up with those lessons. They are talking about still building in time throughout the school day after their B session leaves, let's say that they would have that opportunity to interact with students. And I also want to bring up a good point that an elementary teacher talked about with pacing. It seems like if you're only in school 2 days a week, you're only going to get half the content completed. I think
That's what it seems like.
that's the initial perception, but we also have to understand, when you have those smaller groups. I'm not saying you're moving as fast as if you see kids 5 days a week, but a teacher made it very clear, with those smaller groups, you're able to accomplish more, get through those pacing guides, get through content a little bit quicker than you would if you had an entire class there. So the other big piece with that is, generally all of those content standards needed to be addressed and supposed to be accomplished by April 1st before state testing.
Right.
With
Hopefully we're not gonna have state
and
testing.
hopefully
There are
without
bills
state
saying-
testing involved anymore, if we're still on the yellow plan after the first of the year, we technically would have until end of May, early June to get through a lot more content. But that is not the goal, that is not the intent. I worked with outstanding elementary teachers in those subgroups that, the main focus, and I'll speak for K-12 teachers is, and I've said this before, we focused a lot on flexibility in the spring, just because of the impact and the immediacy of the red plan we had to put in place. But that realm has changed, and we want to focus on accountability before the
Right,
flexibility.
and to be clear, I'm not questioning the commitment, the skill level, expertise, the passion,
No,
of
I
our
know
teachers,
that.
because I know that they're outstanding and they want to deliver this, but what, I have a question on what you just said. So if we're saying, the teachers, elementary teachers have, Monday, Tuesday, they have their A group, and then they have their B group, so they're doing the content here on Monday and Tuesday, and then doing
Yes.
the content on Wednesday and Thursday, but then they're gonna do other stuff. Like, to me, that sounds like we're putting quite a burden on teachers to say, hey, you're teaching all day Monday, Tuesday, all day Wednesday and Thursday, but now I need you also to get back with the A people on the
Sure.
B day and B, I mean, that seems like
It is.
quite a burden
I
to be
mean-
putting on K-5 teachers.
Absolutely.
Could we have like another, like a third grade teacher or something that is committed to third grade students? Like just a remote teacher, I guess, that they can contact on those days?
Yeah, like on the other days.
Yeah, because they can't, like one for each grade level, I mean,
You know,
or two.
I think that makes a little bit of sense, but I
Any
think,
school.
but I think there's also, I think it also makes sense for that interaction, especially when you're seeing that teacher in third grade 2 days a week. You're gonna form that relationship, and that connection is gonna make more sense to reach out to my teacher rather than just another person who may be certified in that area. But no, it does. It puts it. I mean, and I think the perception is, and I've read this, whether it be social media comments or what have you, that teachers aren't working as hard under this. They're working harder than traditionally.
Well,
And
that's
I
exactly
think-
what I'm saying.
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
with what you're saying for K-5, like, I mean, we're quite expanding their responsibilities and the pressure on them.
Sure.
I mean, that sounds, I don't know.
I think that, well, number one, what I see as an issue to address the piece about, like, if it was a designated, like, third grade resource teacher, whether it be in building, or across the district, I think the tricky piece is making sure that every third grade classroom is in the same place, and it would be I think that would be a difficult logistic piece. I think as well, if we think about what all of our goals are, the goals of everybody in this room is to provide the best education we can for Sylvania students, and being given the tools and the space to do that. And when we talk about, there might be this thought of, in the information age and in the technology age that we're in, well, let's just roll out the computers, let's just go ahead and do the live streaming. But really, it's different when we're talking about a classroom. And I think we need to think about that in our kids and where they're at. The teachers at those grade levels, and I'm a high school teacher, but I trust when I hear from those elementary teachers who are saying the best learning environment they can give for the students, considering we're in the middle of a pandemic, is to do it this way, where they're in person a couple of days and then providing the supportive learning environment remotely on the other 2 days. And they're willing to do it. They're up to that task. They want to. I know they spend a lot of sleepless nights right now thinking exactly what you're talking about. How is it in this in this environment that we're in, how is it that I'm going to get those students a year's worth of learning? What is going to happen if we don't, and where is the cumulative effect of another year if they're not there? So I just want to throw that in as we talk about these pieces, that the teachers are just as, if not more, concerned about the students of the district and how to provide that learning. And this is coming with the feedback from them about what would be the best environment, those 2 days in person, and not doing the live streaming at the elementary level. I think there are things that we can do to always do to bolster and to tweak the plan, but in general, the live streaming at that level is not going to be the best way to deliver the
So,
instruction.
logistically, you just said like the in-person and then, remote support the other days. Logistically, like, how does that work if you have 4 days of in class? Like, you have your A and then you have your B.
Yeah.
When logistically are they providing this remote support?
That was brought up, and they did it. They did it in the spring. I've talked to teachers who receive emails. We all are well aware that receive emails at 9, 10, 2 in the morning, what have you.
Right.
But there was some brief conversation where that school day ends, to tie in a half an hour or whatever, where I am available after school, as most teachers are. You can log on during this time from, I'll just throw it out there, 3:30 to 4 o'clock. Build that into their 7-hour and 35-minute schedule for that remote support, where students can log on to a Zoom or a Google Meet or what have you, or using the new Schoology platform to interact with their teacher during that time.
Okay, so I have no, somebody else can go. I have more specific questions too.
I would like to add, I think that's a
Kind of needs
piece
question.
that we may be underestimating is what Schoology will be able to do. So
Yeah,
for
I'm not
example,
familiar with that.
yeah,
so.
and it's a learning management system. Some of you have heard a little bit about it. And just so you know, what we were missing in the spring was the ability to even to record, or you could only do Google Meet, really. In this environment, our classroom teacher that has Group A may say, Tuesday night, I'm gonna go ahead and tape something and post it to the platform as an activity for our students that may be a third grader. They watch this, it's called the flipped classroom model. You watch this, something that I've done, like a 10-minute presentation on some topic. And then I assign that for my A group to do on Wednesday. And here are the activities associated after you watch this lesson. These are the activities and the assignments you need to complete, because it ties into what we have learned in the classroom Monday and Tuesday. So it may not be the formal direct for a second grader or a third grader, but the platform itself, Schoology, allows you to pre-record lessons, follow up with activities, post a PowerPoint, add a video if you wanted to see something from a museum or from a metro park and write a story about this animal that you saw, or compare and contrast a zebra and a giraffe. That's engaged. Compare and contrast is very difficult for some of our children, but to have those activities to be able to post those resources, so it's looking at the essential standards that the state has provided and developing ongoing lessons that support those standards. So it's not, oh, you sit and you get, it's really more engaging. And to your point, I think it is more work.
Yeah.
Because you are having to build it, but the good thing is, I'm going to encourage Dan and our teachers to collaborate. Because one way that you can tackle this is, if I have a team of third grade teachers, and there's 3 of us, we can each develop lessons, and we can share those lessons. Just like we do now. When teachers get together and collaborate, and they're doing something on the habitats of third grade, they will get together and say, let's develop it together, and then we will teach it together, and we will do our feedback together to see how it went and reteach. I think this is the same platform. We can get grade levels of teachers together, and you're gonna do the first part of the lesson, we're gonna upload that link, and you're gonna find some resources, and we're gonna upload, and we can share lessons just like we do in the brick and mortar classroom. So it's not just so independent, but they can support one another and collaborate.
And here's the good news about it. It's already happening.
Yes.
I mean, I can speak from at my own house where my wife is a kindergarten teacher. The work that is going on, and it's gone on all summer long in preparation for this, is happening. Whether it was going to be on a green plan or a red plan or a yellow plan, teachers across the district are doing the things that you're saying, in acknowledgement of how the difficulties we have and the things that we're facing. They are already doing the work. They're already putting in the hours, and they're going to be ready, as best they can be, regardless of what our circumstances are, to deliver it. It's on their minds. It weighs on them about what kind of educational experience they're giving those students. And I know that what that dedication means from those teachers, and they'll deliver. I know they will. And like I said, they're already doing the work.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt that
Yeah.
they'll deliver. Okay, so maybe too much of an in the weeds question. What about like specials in elementary school? I mean, like it used to be like, my kid had library on Monday and gym on Tuesday. I mean, are there gonna be specials?
Yeah.
Are we gonna move them around so that Monday and Tuesday doesn't always get
that's
library and music?
To answer the first part of your question, that's a really in the weeds question.
Yeah, and you may not know, and that's okay.
No, but those are processes we have to put together.
Okay.
Because those art, music, and phys ed teachers, they're going to have basically two groups to deal with, and we started some brief conversations with elementary principals on how we make that work. Also received feedback from AMP teachers, we call them art, music, and phys ed, on how we look those. It may be a couple weeks at a time of phys ed, and then we transition into the music and the art as we're working virtually with those other teachers with those sections for sure,
Yeah,
with those classes.
I didn't want to get too into
No,
this,
that's
but
fine.
I'm
That's
sure
fine.
if people are watching and I don't know, like that.
No,
those are
that's
questions
a great question.
But I
it is,
question
that
that
I'm
also,
getting.
But
the
it-
school start date helps with all of this.
yes. And it-
Right,
Yeah.
but
because
it-
we have the time that we need to substantively address some of those more in the weeds kind of questions.
But it is something we are planning on having in
Okay.
elementary.
And I was going to say, and to the in the weeds kind of question and how we started this discussion about the virtual, the live streaming, that there are things that just do not translate well into live streaming.
Right.
It is some of the classes you're talking about. It's some, we were talking
Orchestra,
science.
band in high school,
Sure.
like that.
Science labs, it would be really hard, like if you've got one group doing a hands-on science lab and the other group is live streaming, that really doesn't cut it. So,
that's not gonna
so that's when we talk about being in the weeds. It can be fundamentally, this is what we're committed to doing, and then in those places where it's art, music, PE, where it's things like the
Labs.
science labs, where we can iron out those things, which again, with the principle and the commitment to, we're gonna do the things we need to for our students.
Right, okay, one more question. So have we ordered the cameras, and then I'll let you have it. Have we ordered cameras?
My
Are we
understanding is
on
we
time?
have ordered the
Yes,
cameras.
we've ordered 500 cameras and they'll be in tomorrow or Thursday.
Okay. All right, go Greg.
Just to kind of, obviously to bring up point a little bit on what you just said, obviously this is not ideal and it's not the best situation. Obviously it's best to have our kids here, but given the circumstances, I do think there are ways around, like science lab you specifically mentioned. There's the district in Indiana that I've kind of shared a little bit. I think it's Southwest Allen County, about 7,400 students, and they're doing this. They're live streaming all their classes. And I talked to the principal over there a couple days ago, and he specifically mentioned, he said science labs they were one of the biggest problems they had to overcome. And he said, they've got strategies of how to get around that, how to keep the virtual students engaged with the students in the room. Like, they paired a student in the room with a virtual student and worked together for a science lab. So obviously it's not ideal, but I feel pretty strongly that is better than, it's not ideal, but it's, I think, the best we can do.
I would say as well to that, I would say when we're talking about other districts, and I do a lot of it with my colleagues across the state, there are things that they can say that sound good, but when you actually see them in place, they don't work out. And for me, I look at like my science teachers who have said, this is not a good way to do it, it's not effective. And so for me, I'm hearing a lot of things go on and like lofty plans, whether it's public schools or parochial schools and the promise of this. I'm looking at the people who are here in Sylvania and the suggestions that they have in their professional opinions about what is going to work and what isn't. Given our students, I don't know about the demographics or anything about that school district. It's kind of like talking about here in Sylvania versus some school in the suburbs of Cincinnati. It may be a little bit different of a learning conditions. So.
Well, and yeah, certainly we've got very experienced people and we need to listen to them. I also think we can learn from other people as well.
Sure. And we have been trying, yeah.
And Tim, I think you also spoke to them as well.
I did. I spoke briefly with them today. Yeah, that's good feedback.
So I think we'll continue to take all of our collective wisdom, everybody, because to your point, everybody's got some great ideas and great suggestions, and that's why tonight is more approving, and I don't want to speak, but my understanding is approving that we are starting yellow with the AA, BB, with the C day, and that we will get into more of the weeds and the substance of that
Right after tonight's
meeting, and that MOUs will be developed in collaboration with SEA, because we've said not only do we want to hear what's important for teachers or them to need, but we also want to reflect very proactively our support for accountability and our support for communicating to our community the expectations we have from the students. This is not, if you're, you might only be in, but it's not you're in and you're out 3 days and not doing anything, but that there's substantive learning that is taking place in whatever manner, depending on grades and depending on teachers. But I think some of the conversation as it relates to what you said, Dan, about all the teachers in the late nights thinking about how they can do this the best, I think they've risen to the challenge in terms of saying we don't want to do what we did in the spring either, because they weren't in a happy place.
Right, absolutely.
So we appreciate that, but I know that there's ongoing discussions, I think, with SEA this week. We're thinking about maybe board meeting next Tuesday. You thought, Dan, would be the soonest that we could gather, maybe to consider if there were MOU language in place?
Yeah,
that would give you enough time?
Yeah, I believe we can do that, yep.
So that's the thought, is to do the scaffolding of the yellow plan as we know it to be, understanding that it is all fluid, and we could do this and be ready.
So, I'm sorry, when will we have answers like this though, these, the specials and?
The weeds. Right?
Yeah,
The weeds.
like we need to know those answers, so.
Absolutely, and I can speak with that. I think what this gives us the opportunity for tonight is to have your blessing to move forward to the meat on the bones. And now that we have that, we anticipate receiving that blessing tonight. You will get more and more information every week moving forward, like with the bus stops. class lists for A and B groups. Then the next part is we have to get that information out to teachers. We have to get some of that stuff out. We need, I believe Alex may start training tomorrow on Schoolology with teachers. That may be postponed a day, but I do know originally it was scheduled maybe for Thursday. No, tomorrow. Tomorrow he's already starting training, so teachers, once they have that training, they can actually start to go in and build their classes within Schoolology. I know I saw several emails from many of our teachers who wanted their access codes right away because they see themselves as techie people and they want in. They think they can figure it out and we want them to jump in. So the earlier they can get started on that, the better. The next piece we do, we have some details and it's a matter of we want it sooner than later, which is why we have 1 extra week with a gift of time to make sure we get it right. So stay tuned. I'm keeping my commitment of rolling out information to parents weekly, a couple of times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. We are also going to develop a parent guide. You may have seen those in other local districts. I actually shared one from my soon-to-be previous district that we had sent out as well. They also had to have the board adopt the plan first, but they didn't start with 3. We were diligent. We were going for it. But I also want parents to know that more information will be forthcoming and we want to continue to communicate with them. We are also meeting on Thursday with all of our building administrators, so they too can be brought up to speed with where we are and what their next steps and expectations are, so that parents who call them will be able to have their questions answered by building principals as well. Officially, all our building principals start back to work on Monday. So we want to make sure that we have more of a personalized touch with our parents instead of having folks here just answering, but they can call the building principal and say, tell me what this is going to look like for my little Johnny who's in 8th grade or 3rd grade. Because that is going to look a little different in every building,
Right.
with what they have available. So we want to arm them with information as well, so stay tuned.
I have another question. I really wasn't telling you, right? And this might be like totally out of left field, but have we thought, I mean, this is some feedback that I've gotten from the public. Have we thought, like for the grades, like Greg said, like if we did, 4 to, 12 with the cameras in the room, that sort of learning 4 days a week, have we at all thought about doing like K through 3, half the class in the morning and half the class in the afternoon, 4 days a week, so that they're having that in-person experience, but still separating them?
Yes, I believe we did have that conversation, and I think it was a transportation issue.
Huge transportation.
Whatever, don't rain on my parade.
It's reality. Like, even when we have the shorter days for high school exams,
Right.
it's really bad. And so to do that, you'd have to make other decisions like, high school busing and, make those kinds of changes and such. So it was discussed, we had those things.
In the morning, and then
Right,
back
there's not enough
and then
time.
picking everybody up.
And the other part of that is many of our drivers are cafeteria people in the midday, so we would not have those people as well during that time if we did that. So we'd have another shortage going on, so.
I know there are, I know there are 2 sides to every story with childcare, so, but, right now, let's say your students in the A group and you need to find childcare Wednesday, Thursday, Friday consistently. Where if it's a half day, now you're looking at 4 days a week, either childcare from 9 till noon or noon to 3, who's gonna get, just some feedback I received, but I'm sure there's other,
Yeah.
there could be other feedback that they would want.
No,
but-
and I understand that, and I'm sympathetic to that, but, I was more thinking along the lines of getting the content, and, kindergartners, only like 2 days a week, if they had 4 days a week, back to the half day, like, back when my kids were in kindergarten, it was only half a day anyway, so, having that consistent contact 4 days a week, even, if we did the cameras, but, I understand the transportation issue.
Are our K to 5 students still gonna have Chromebooks at home for those? Okay.
And I think too, just to represent how all over the board, I don't know if you all probably saw the Sylvania survey, literally
Yes.
was almost equitably divided. Half people, all 5 days in school, half the people, all 5 days at home.
And next week they might switch, I mean, this situation changes frequently.
Exactly.
And I should probably just say, if anybody's watching live stream and has heard that I have COVID, I do not. I know that's out in the community, that I did get a positive, and I have to say, in my house, that, it really brought it home. Like, my daughters were very upset, and one of them, when I found out the next day that it was a mistake made by the lab, somebody pushed the wrong button, and I was always negative, so if you see me in Kroger, it's not because I don't care about you. I really don't have it, but my daughter said, you know, once we knew it was negative, she said, the scary thing was, this made it so real. Like, look how easily this can happen, and like, here it was in our house. And I know all of you thought that, because I had to contact all of you to say, I'm sorry, that may have exposed you to COVID, so it's, everything changes.
Very
I mean, I felt a lot differently on Thursday than I did on Friday night.
Right.
You know,
100%.
Maybe some of you did also.
We felt a lot better after we got the texts that we weren't exposed. That was much relief, but I appreciate all the work, Dan, I know everybody in this room is doing. Just, it is just daunting, the work that has to be done, daunting. And to get this and to get the leads questions answered and whatever, so, you know, I think the idea was so we could communicate to the community that a yellow plan and the AABBC, so they knew which day would be the catch-up day. And so they know that the school bus stops are approved, the calendar is going to be pushed back, so it takes a little bit of the anxiety from the 18th, moves it back a week and a half. Those are all things that put us in position without, hopefully, I think, I saw a nod when I asked you, Dan, that next Tuesday still sounds like a reasonable time for us if we schedule another meeting when we could have substance on an MOU.
Absolutely. You know, I think we all recognize the importance of having some expediency to this and how close we're getting to the beginning of the school year. I think from people in this room to all the teachers out there to all the parents out there, everybody wants to know what the conditions are going to be like for going back to school, and so certainly we want to get this done and get it done right within the next week. So yes, we're looking at this as a target for being back here next week.
So I want to clarify in the calendar, because it says grade level orientation, but those are being moved to the following week. Those are starting for the 31st. Okay.
From my understanding, we had some discussion about that this afternoon. Everything will just be pushed back a week, and that communication will be also sent to parents so that they can make plans for that. We thought it was critical that we maintain those orientations, and during those orientations, we will also train some of our students on protocols for social distancing and wearing masks and all that fun stuff.
Great. It says in here, I want to clarify, make sure that everybody hears. I'm looking at the specifics on the calendar. August 19th through the 24th, there will be grade level orientations. So,
Okay, it says on this calendar the 25th through the 28th, but then I thought we were changing it to starting the 31st.
The amended one was from today, so if they printed one from before.
I've got maybe the one from before, I'm sorry.
Are you looking at the one online?
I am.
Yeah,
This one.
Okay, I think this was distributed or printed prior to the change
We have
earlier
some
today, because I think
Okay, sorry. You have the most, I just
Yes.
pulled it
The
off
one
the board docs, I
online has been
apologize then,
amended.
sorry.
Okay.
I do know that for a fact because Vicki checked with me before I gave
Well,
that.
it seemed that they would be doing it the 25th to the 28th to start on the 31st, right? So it's.
Right, so it'd be a week
Yes,
back from that,
Amy's got it.
sorry.
Wait, so they're, like, my kids, they would be in school like the 25th through the 28th, one of the days? Okay, so it does start. Okay, right.
And in that regard, then, will families, should they expect the new normal about how maybe if they're moving the halls one direction or those kind of things? When will the building diagrams and that protocol, will that be delivered to families those orientation days, or will they receive it before?
I think it'll be grade level specific, especially for when you're looking at high school students. Some of that communication will be going directly to high school students.
Sure.
Sometimes it gets to parents and there's a busy lifestyle there, so we want to make sure our students are informed and our parents are informed. However, the younger grades, we definitely will communicate that from each building principal, and we want to have that to them ahead of time. But it's more important for those little guys that we also make sure that we walk them through what that looks like. But we also want to be able to put our parents' minds at ease so that they know what their child will face on a daily basis. So we will communicate with them as well. Absolutely.
Do we have other questions for Dr. Motley as it relates to the yellow plan? And it seems the calendar revision and administrative additional days are kind of all included in there. We'll get to each of those to vote on, but I think the expectation, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is then would be, we would gather next Tuesday for the specific purposes of filling in a lot of the answers to the questions by way of MOUs with SEA, as well as developing further details balance of this week, understanding you still are finishing up at SEL, which we appreciate, and the official start date follow 1 a.m. with us Saturday morning. So would that be fair?
Yes, and I do ask that people do realize, there are a lot of moving parts, as you stated, and parts that have tentacles, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you need to know it. So as we move through the process to answer questions, and we answer those questions, there may be more questions. So we want to make sure that we address those. This is a team effort and it's collaborative. Teachers will have questions that we need to think about. Principals are going to have questions. Our parents are going to have questions. And sometimes the question is, or the answer is, we need to give some thought to that because there's no playbook on how to open school under a pandemic. So we want to make sure that we have as much information as possible, noting that as things start moving and rolling, and once we're in school, we may have to take some revision steps, because once it's in play, we're going to learn more about what it looks like and where we need to make adjustments. I know many other organizations, other companies are experiencing that. They bring someone back, they open up, and then they figure out that's not working, and they have to shift or slide to the left. The one piece I'm confident is that we will have a plan ready to go with academics as our priority, as well as safety for our students and staff.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Dan,
good.
Keith, Sam, Cheryl, Amy, Lisa. All of you, thank you.
Thank you. So if I may make a recommendation, which is item 3.1, I am seeking the board's approval for implementation of the yellow plan for the 2021 school year. 2.1? This is 2.1? All right, 2.1 it is, thank you, sir. Also,
Oh, you're doing consent agenda?
I believe so, the way it's read incorrect. There isn't a motion after each one. Well, yeah, there is. Recommended for board approval, item 3.1.
2.1?
2.1.
I'll move approval on item 2.1, yellow plan.
2.1. Thank you.
Who's second?
Any comments or questions? You'll call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 2.2 is a recommendation to the Board of Education to revise our calendar for the upcoming school year, delaying the start of school by the official first day by 1 week.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Comments or questions? It looks like we ended the same time that we
Yes.
originally were ending.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the, when there's 2-day week, that you gave them each 1 day, spot to the front. I like this. Good job.
Good team.
Good work.
Excellent.
Good work, team.
You'll call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky.
Yes.
Final item is 2.3, I do believe, where we have some additional days for administrators that came together to work with our team to give their input on the start of the school year under the hybrid plan and how that could actually take place. So we are recommending the approval for payment.
Those are awesome. Just checking. Those are elementary principals who don't work this time of year, who are working pretty profusely right now to get those A and B groupings done by Friday. So that's your best work.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Comments or questions? We appreciate all their work. It's been an unusual summer. If you'll call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Alrighty, and the last item?
You have one more.
Oh, one more, yes. The last item is item 2.4 for our bus stops for the upcoming school year, noting that this document may be revised based on student enrollment and residence.
I'll second.
I'm gonna ask
Are you gonna ask
yeah,
a question,
I'm gonna
though?
ask a question, ask
That's
every
why
year.
you're-
And since Joe's not here, I'm gonna ask you, did you check to make sure none of these stops are like near sex offenders' homes?
That's why they are subject to change.
So we
They have
haven't
not been
checked
checked at this point, no.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for me, I don't wanna say yes, but that is gonna be checked?
Yes, we can, yes.
When is that gonna be checked?
Prior to the final list coming out and kids being notified of their bus stop times and things like that. This does not include your stop time is X, it's just stops.
It's
So-
just where the location is, I'm
Right.
not really concerned about the stop. I'm
Exactly, but
concerned if
prior
there's
to
any
that
sex
time, if we have to
offenders,
change a stop because of that, that'll be reflected in what's communicated to the kids' parents.
Well, I have a follow-up now, do we have to approve this right now?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, can we pull it and approve it on next Tuesday, once we check it?
Yeah, you can, this just has to be done prior to school starting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not real comfortable saying yes without that information. I mean, I asked this, that's my big reason, she's like, you can ask, and I asked this every year. Because one year, actually, before I asked the question, I got a call from a parent whose daughter was standing in the dark in a sex offender's driveway down the street from her house. And I was like, that is so unacceptable. That's a simple thing for us to check every time we do this. I mean, there's not like a million sex offenders in Sylvania and Sylvania Township. So,
Yes, we can do that.
thank you.
So we'll withdraw, Greg withdrew
I'll
his motion.
withdraw the motion.
Maybe next year we'll try and email you like a week before.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry.
Oh, we're gonna
Yes.
follow it, okay, I got you.
Yeah, second.
We're not gonna table. We need a second. Vicky?
Motion to withdraw.
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle,
Yes.
Bruce Slutsky,
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And public participation, if we received any emails?
Did you email them to me?
I did.
I don't think we need to. Okay.
Do we have public participation?
I think we have 2 or 3.
Okay. You're right. There you go, Molly. Not yet. Will we call them from, Steve, can I use this, you know, to call as opposed to myself? I feel like I'm on a game show and I'm doing phone.
I'm so glad to see you and not me, because I would be like, on this phone. What kind of phone is that? Phone from, right?
Hi, this is Nan.
Hi, Nan, this is Vicki Donovan Lyle, President of the Board of Sylvania Board of
Oh, hi,
Education.
yes.
Thank you for your email, we appreciate it, in this new way of public participation. I'm gonna read your question out loud because we have your name and address for the record, which I appreciate.
That's fine.
And it's, if new content is being delivered every day and the student is home in their online day, and they have a question about the content, how do they receive immediate teacher feedback and have their question answered?
Correct.
Okay. So the question is, if they are home online and then they have an immediate question, how do they receive immediate teacher feedback and have their question answered when they're not in their class at school but working remotely at home?
Correct.
Correct. Do we have an answer that we could provide, or is that thing that we're working on? If we are delivering education in virtual space and they're following, McCord Junior High, so 6 to 12. Your student is in junior high, so they'll be following along online. Do we have, this may be to be determined, not because we're trying to parry an answer, but because we're developing. But Mr.
So
Green.
correct, I just wanted it to be taken into consideration, one of the things to be taken into consideration. The student did have a question, so they get their feedback immediately since it's being streamed online, or streamed live.
I would assume that's gonna be in the handbook, right?
I think it would be something that would be done on a classroom by classroom basis, depending on the setup. If I'm standing in front of my class, delivering a lecture, live streaming, and working with the kids, I will not see that chat immediately. But if I'm doing something where my mode of sharing information is through like a screen capturing, where I'm just streaming it and I'm sitting there, it would be easier to address those questions or comments as they come up. It really depends on what you're doing and how you're delivering service. So I don't think it's uniform. I think there's the commitment that you'll get your questions answered. The teachers will be in touch in a timely fashion and make sure that students have their questions answered.
Did you hear all that, Nan?
I did, yes, and I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, I think everybody's intent will be to do the best they can within the circumstances in front of them, certainly to get back to your student with questions, because we love engagement.
I appreciate it, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
This Schoology, is there like a chat where the kids could maybe answer each other's questions?
I do believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, there are options.
Okay.
Yep. And I think we'll be able to find questions too.
16200-1979.
Hello.
Hi, may I speak with Jennifer, please?
There's no Jennifer at this number. What number was you dial?
316-200-1979.
No, there's no Jennifer. I've had this number for almost 20 years.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is that not a phone number? Am I misreading it? Here's Hold on. I'm gonna try one more time. So are you gonna tell him when he answers?
Be happy.
I wonder if it's supposed to be 216, because that would make a lot more sense than 216 as an area code.
Right, because,
They could have.
Minnesota?
Sounds southern.
You call the number, it's gonna get to Jennifer.
I'm sorry.
Our apologies. Let's try 216 just for, that's at least an Easter egg code.
Yeah,
216-200.
Can we just say like if Jennifer's watching, we don't have your number? Like I'll say my number.
245.
I mean, I'll say, but she's probably watching.
Right. 216.
Like Jennifer, we're trying to reach you.
We call that guy again.
No. Yeah, no.
Still trying?
The telephone number you have dialed is temporarily not in service.
Okay,
So,
sorry, Jennifer Engelman, if you are watching this, we do not have a phone number to contact you, and we'd be happy to if we could get the number from you before the close of our meeting. If not, feel free to email us and we will do our level best to answer your question. So just the two? Okay, thank you. So we are with you then, Mr. Limes.
Thank you. Just one item tonight on the license side is a supplemental position, item 4.2. That is actually from the 1920 school year. That was left off the list.
I'm on approval.
Second. Any comments or questions? And the technical director play, I presume, did not occur in the spring.
I
It
believe.
did, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the play didn't go forward, but they did all the preparation of the, they were.
Right, but this would be the reduced agreed to amount as
Yeah,
opposed to.
we're gonna reduce it to the amount, right? I don't know what this amount is, like how much.
Right.
Yeah, this is the
The contract amount, and then
Yeah.
Then we'll
whatever that
okay,
may be.
in accordance with the MOU. Okay. All right, if you'll call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky,
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Okay, and with that, we are to board committee reports and announcements. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order? You know everybody's been busy. So, with that, I will make a motion that we adjourn into executive session for the purpose of
Consideration of employment of a public employee.
and there will be no action taken upon adjournment.
I'll second.
You'll call the roll, please?
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Does Ruslan have another link to join them for the executive session, Lisa?
No, he doesn't, but he will.
Okay.
Or you just FaceTime.
Thank you very much, Dan, for being here.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Sure,
you, we
glad to do
appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, Dan.
I will send you another link. Actually, who's the only one on this?